What is going on, you guys? So today I want to hop into another quick video review with you. This one is from a guy named Lewis Howes, who has a podcast you can watch on YouTube called School of Greatness. A lot of really great podcasts and episodes on there. Check it out. So his guest here is Dr. Joe Dispenza, and the title here of the video is Dr. Joe Dispenza Reveals Why People Hurt Others. Let's hop into the video.
People who hate themselves will hate others. And people who are angry with themselves will be angry at others. People who are impatient with others will be impatient with themselves, will be impatient with others. People who are unhappy with themselves will punish other people until they feel unhappy. It's just our nature as human beings. But when people are truly grateful for themselves or for their life, they're grateful for others. People who love themselves naturally love others. People who are okay finally with themselves are okay with others. You know, it's just kind of how it is. So one of the things that people have as a limitation to the understanding of love is that they're feeling something other than it. And in order for us to find love, a part of us must die.
Ooh, wait. Why do we need to die to find love, or part of us?
Because anything that's not love in us must die.
Oh.
And that's the difference between knowing the path and walking the path, right? So one of the things that we want to teach people in the work that we do is to understand how to manage their energy, right? And how to manage their attention. When you feel love, which is just a word, by the way, and people have their own experience of what that is, you tend to feel more whole. And when you feel more whole, you tend to want less. When you truly feel love, it is very different than being selfish. You're kind of more selfless. And when you're in your heart, you're more prone to give, you're more prone to care, you're more prone to be present, you're more prone to be grateful, you're more prone to be kind. That's the consciousness of that center. It is the creative center. It's the union of opposites. It's the union of polarities. It's where oneness, where our divinity starts, right? There can't be enough said about that center. So if you just did an inventory of the amount of time you feel love during the day and the amount of time you feel other emotions like resentment or impatience or frustration or judgment or jealousy, any other one of those emotions, that is the opposite of love. Fear is not the opposite of love. It is the separation from love. Pain and suffering, they're not the opposite of love. They're the separation from it. That anger and hatred and hostility and violence, they're not the opposite of love. They're the separation from love, right? So then if you're living in survival and living in survival.
By the way, all those things are essentially like, he's making great points. All those things are essentially poison to your calm, your being at peace, you're being in a state of joy, right? Or love and happiness, right? Like all those things, because your default state is peace, joy, and happiness, or love, right? And so all these other things you're allowing to affect you, you know, whatever happened in your life, you know, they might have been challenging, although you can choose, essentially. That's one of the processes of meditation, is you get to the point where you realize, oh, I'm observing this thought, I'm observing this emotion. I can attach myself to it or I cannot. And I can choose to continue in a state of joy and love and act, even if something is difficult, like even if someone is being like resentful towards me, you know, acting strange to me, hostile, negative comments, whatever it is, right? If they have a state of negativity, you can see it. It's almost like you have a bubble, right? Like there's that movie like Bubble Boy, like you're like in a big hamster ball. Like you can see it as you're in a bubble or a force field, right? Where any of those things just slide off of you. And if you act out of love, and especially if you decide that you want to respond to them, not react, but respond to them, they'll see your state of calm, your state of joy, and you can probably actually bring them into your state by asking the right questions in a calm state. Like, you know, what's the reason for that? You know, how come? Like, you know, what makes you feel that way? Or what makes you think that, right? And then you kind of lead them down a path, and they're going to kind of sponge up some of your energy that way. So, you know, basically your default state is love, and these other things like negative comments, right? They only come from a place of fear, resentment, judgment, right? It's even just like little things like funny YouTube comments or things like that, right? It's like, do you think that a person who was really in a state of love and in a good place in their life would even bother to do that. No, they would say enjoying their life. They're spreading love with the people that they know, right? Their friends, new people that they meet, things like that. And so they would be basically unbothered by these things and be happy to help too, rather than spreading the negative side of it. So let's keep going.
I was living in stress, and living in stress produces a cocktail of chemicals and hormones that make you feel something other than love. Turns out the majority of time people are feeling something other than love, and they're feeling some of those other emotions. So you only get good at what you practice, right? And those emotions will drive certain human behaviors that...
Just a quick note there. What he's saying is most people are most of the time, like a majority of the time, in a state of stress, anxiety, or one of these other emotions like fear, resentment, anger, sadness, and they're essentially in a state of survival or fight or flight. And just think about what that does to your body, your mental health, your emotional health. Like, it actually affects your body. Like if your body is constantly in a state of stress or fight or flight, survival, you're gonna age a lot faster, right? You're gonna be sort of poisoning your mindset. It's like if you hold on to that thing, you're only poisoning yourself. So you have to be able to let go and return to the state of peace, joy, love. Because just imagine holding on to that stress, survival, fight or flight for most of your life, because that's what most people do. So keep that in mind, and this will help you sort of move out of that.
Primarily universal, and will cause us to think in very predictable ways, right? So the separation from love because of an event or a trauma or whatever it is causes people to view their life through a different lens than love, right? Okay, so teach a person how to stop feeling those emotions of survival, right? Because in survival, it's not a time to create.
No.
When you're in survival, it's not a time to communicate. It's not a time to learn. It's not a time to cooperate. It's not a time to get along. It's time to run, fight, or hide. And when you're in survival, you're very selfish. You're self-indulgent. You're self-important. You're self-aggrandizing. And you're full of self-pity. It's all about the self. We're self-involved in so many ways. And that means that once I'm okay and I'm happy, then everybody else could be happy. And so in survival, and we're feeling those emotions, we're doing everything we can to make that feeling go away, right? So it turns out that if you're in that state where you're in survival and it's not a time to create, or not a time to love, or not a time to open your heart, not a time to learn, you're compromised in a lot of ways. So bring that into a relationship with peers, with coworkers, with relatives, with family, with a partner. Then the fundamental question is, what would love do in a relationship? I think that's a really important question. Now, we have different relationships with different people, and because we've had experiences with different people, because we've had experiences with them, we have neurological circuitry that is a memory that we can relate to that person. In fact, I see you based on the memory I have of you. I'm filling in my idea of Lewis based on my memory of him. So I'm not really seeing you. I don't see things how they are. I see things how I am, right? So your brain only can see it equal to how it's mapped. So based on my experience, I super like you. You're a great guy. We get along. We have a lot of things in common. And so I see you that way. And the feeling that I have from my interactions with you causes me to be attracted to you. Like, you're a cool guy. We hang out. We have great conversations. And so when I see you, there is a sense.
By the way, two things there. The one thing he was saying, so basically, when you're not in the state of peace, joy, love, right? Fear, resentment, all those other survival states, you're usually, a lot of people, you can see it actually, a lot of people are consuming and they're not creating. And creating doesn't necessarily mean just art, or just creating a life, designing the life that you really want for yourself, acting in that way, creating the kinds of relationships you really want, friends, whether it's work related, you're doing something that you're passionate about to help others, caring for your partner, in acting in that way, right? Because most people are just consuming, right? Take, and they're not creating, giving, sharing, right? And the easiest example of that is when you're in one of those survival states, a lot of people retreat and they self-isolate, so they either don't hang out with people much, or they don't hang out with quality people, so it's always like people that aren't helping them level up, like they're not like raising up together. Healthy lifestyles, right? So like bars, clubs, Netflix, doom scrolling on Instagram, right? Like you self-isolate, and then like you're just consuming, not creating.
Of love, there's an energy, there's a connection, there's camaraderie, there's some kind of...
Oh, and this is another thing that he's saying is like, it's how you see someone, like the people that you interact with, is all based on that internal state, like your perception of life.
Type of union, right? Those are healthy relationships, and as long as we're honoring one another, that relationship will continue and foster really great outcomes. You have a relationship with someone like an ex or someone who's betrayed you, you have a different memory of that person based on your experience.
Which triggers a different feeling, right?
Which triggers a different feeling that's based on experience. And so then it makes sense then that the stronger the emotion you feel towards that person, the more you pay attention to them. And where you place your attention is where you place your energy. So you're giving your power away to change to that person or that circumstance, and it's entirely possible that your reality is staying the same because your energy is the same. That you, in fact, are contributing to that reality staying exactly unchangeable, right? So then you take a person, and they've had a moderately difficult past. Everybody's got a story, but when does the story end? You know,
right?
And now is the new later, right? I mean, it really is.
Now is the new later.
Yeah, like if you want to change that now, okay, so the person understands fundamentally they haven't changed since that event. They're feeling the same emotion they felt from 20 years ago, and somehow their personality is in the past, right? Okay, so the person then has to overcome that emotional state. And so
That's something to pay attention to, right? Like, so basically what he's saying is you can sleepwalk through your entire life living as who you were and not who you want to be.
in meditation, and as part of their identity, and meditation is getting beyond yourself. And as you're sitting there, all of a sudden you start getting frustrated and angry and resentful towards your ex. You one of two choices. Just go fully down that rabbit hole for the next hour and see how that feels at the end. Or ask yourself, is this loving to me? Justified or not, the only person it's going to affect is me.
Is this loving to me or for me?
Yeah, it was not either one.
Right,
It's
right.
not either one. Okay, so if I could, in my meditation, really say, okay, this isn't loving to me. I know this isn't right. Even though I want to make them wrong, I'm going to work on settling my body down from that emotional state. If I'm successful at regulating that emotion, no longer allowing the body to feel that emotion, I'm inhibiting that thought and feeling, that image and emotion, I'm breaking that conditioning response. If I'm successful at doing that, if I lower the volume to that emotion, I'm going to take my attention off that person or problem, which means I'm going to be taking my power back, right? Because I'm going to drop my energy, I'm going to build my own field, right? I'm no longer giving.
And I mean, essentially, a big important piece to what he's saying is, you know, I think he actually says this sometimes too, is like where your energy is focused is where it flows or goes, right? So if you're always focused on like what might go wrong or the negative things, you're essentially attracting that, right? And if you focus on who you want to be, like basically being that best version of yourself, all the good things in your life, gratitude, and essentially like acting as your best self, your highest self, your future self that you want to be, acting as that person now, not like he said, now is the new later. Like, it's not like when I get this thing, when this happens, I can finally do this. Just act in accordance with that future self now, right? And that's, if you're focusing on that, your energy is going there, and so you're going to be essentially attracting your future self faster and attracting all those things that are part of that vision, right? Like the beautiful wife and kids, the beautiful, you know, passionate career where you're helping others, like all these different things, right? Like where you live, you know, the lifestyle that you have. Like this is a good reminder, right? It's like you can attract things that you don't want because you're focusing on that, and you can attract the things that you really want because you're acting in accordance with that and focusing on it. And it's important not to say like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna be that, I can finally do this when. Just do it now. Now is the new later.
Them my power to change energetically. I'm no longer giving them my attention, my energy. If I overcome the emotion, I'll take my attention off that person and I'll begin to build my own electromagnetic field. Now there's energy to create. Now there's energy to heal. Now there's energy for a whole new future. And lo and behold, when you lower the volume to that emotion, you take your attention off that person. That's forgiveness.
Wow.
Because if you don't feel the emotion any longer, then you no longer have your attention on that person, and your life truly changes. You'll never hold on to that emotion again.
But why are so many people holding on to resentment of what someone did in a relationship in their past versus allowing them to find forgiveness and peace about it? Maybe it's not agreeing that it was okay what they did, but why do people hold on to resentment for so long, or anger about a past?
I think it's because people are afraid it's going to happen to them again.
Oh.
And when we have a traumatic event, big or small, in fact, you're always on the lookout for any signal in the environment, any person or circumstance that's going to be the smallest cue that's going to say, ooh, I've done this before, I better get ready for it. So we're in a constant...
And again, that's like getting back into the fight or flight, focusing on that. So you're basically potentially attracting a repeat experience there. And it's funny because he hasn't said it yet, but he's talking about the law of vibration, which basically he's talking about these things like having an electromagnetic field. So think about this for a second, right? Your body, you've probably heard this before, like your body is mostly made up of water. And I want you to look this up if you haven't seen it after this video. Go look up like videos of like a water stream vibrating, right? Like to like different vibrations, right? So, and you'll see like it looks crazy, like it looks like it's not real, but like if it's like in the air, like it's like a stream that's being like sprayed up or something, like the water will form these crazy patterns, and it's all based on vibration, what Joe Dispenza talks about a lot is that your emotions and these things that you focus on affect your vibration, and it affects essentially like what's going on inside you. So if you're made up of mostly water, and that can change like the shape of it, right? It's showing, right? Like you can do that, and you can attract things that you don't want, like what he's saying right now. Is you can also attract the things that you do want by focusing on it and being that, like acting in accordance with that now.
State of bad news, waiting for the worst case scenario. So let me just finish this, okay?
Yep.
Because the question really was about self-love. The person who lives in resentment is making themselves unhappy. The person who's judging everybody else because they're judging themselves is making themselves unhappy. The person who's complaining, blaming, making excuses, feel sorry for themselves, they're making themselves unhappy. There's nobody doing that to them. You say it's your ex? Okay, let's take your ex, let's put him in a straitjacket and shoot him to the moon. Now what?
You're still holding on to it.
You're still thinking that way and feeling that way, and that person is no longer in your life. You're defined by that story, by that past event, okay? The person's truly sincere and thinks there's something other than that emotion of resentment. What's on the other side of it? Am I willing to sit through it long enough? And no matter how much the pain is or what my body does, I'm going to sit this one out. I'm going to work with my body and keep bringing it back into the present moment. It's like training an animal. You keep doing it over and over again. You stay. I'm not getting up, I'm not eating, I'm not moving. We're going to keep lowering the volume. You keep reconditioning the body to a new mind. Sooner or later, it surrenders. It surrenders to a new mind. When that occurs, there's that liberation of energy, and energy moves into the heart, and you feel love for yourself. You feel a respect for yourself. You feel an honor for yourself. Something, you took your power back, you built your field. Something feels right. When we look at the data of people who do this, and we see their scans, their brain scans, or we see their HRV measurements, and they get good at this. We measure their oxytocin levels. Now, oxytocin is the love chemical, right? And it's made in the pituitary gland. It is the love chemical, causes us to bond, to connect, to unify. And when I showed the values of oxytocin levels with these people to scientists, they're sometimes 200 times above normal. Now, that's not a little love. That's a lot of love.
It's an explosion of love.
It's a lot of love. And so oxytocin signals nitric oxide, and nitric oxide signals another chemical called endothelial-derived relaxing factor. And that chemical causes the arteries in your heart and your lungs to literally open up, and blood flows into your heart, and your heart is filled with energy. Just like when it engorges the sexual organs. There's an engorgement of blood in there, and it activates it with energy, and there's a mind that's created. It's a consciousness.
Wow. Now,
if this one opens up, it's a whole different consciousness. In fact, the research on oxytocin shows that the slightest elevation in oxytocin, it's impossible to hold a grudge. It's impossible. You say, dude, I feel so good. Like, I'm good. Like, no, I'm good. I'm really good. Now, that kind of state means I don't want to feel anything else but this. So I am not going to compromise myself or my energy to a lower denominator just because of you. In fact, I'm really good around you. I'm really okay. I feel so good. I don't want to judge you because I don't want to lose this feeling.
Right.
So then imagine being around a cat like that. Being around a person like that, that's really easy to be around because they're okay with themselves. And when they're okay with themselves, they relate with people differently. In fact, they relate with them unconditionally. They just love them unconditionally, and that causes an attraction. It causes a bond, right? So one of the things I learned last year in watching people, in this work and week-long events, I do my best to pay really close attention. Looked out at an audience one day, and I looked out in the room, we just finished the walking meditation, everybody sat down, and I kind of glanced around the room, and everybody had this radiant smile. And I said to them, hey, who's making you happy, by the way? Who? Who's making you happy? There's nobody doing that to you.
Yeah.
You're doing that to you. You're making yourself, you're not relying on anybody in your life to do that. Now, that is an attractive energy. That's the person who relates well with money. There's a relationship with money. They relate well with people. They're very giving, they're very caring, they want nothing in return, they're more present, because that's who they're practicing being. And so there's a natural affinity, a natural attraction, because the person is really present and they're really okay, and something is different about them.
Awesome, guys. So, obviously, really cool guy. Both of them, Lewis Howes, the interviewer, and then the interviewee, Joe Dispenza. Great. They have a lot of great things to say. I definitely recommend checking out their books as well as their any podcasts that they're on, because they share a lot of really insightful things around self-development and just leveling up. So, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was helpful for you in some way. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. You got this, bro.